going to talk about, God, I can't even believe we're talking about hurricane season, um, and just getting people ready. It's one of the things, it's a reality. We live here in Florida, and it just so happens that, we're right in the midst of a pandemic while this is happening, but you can't really let your judgment lapse and not make a plan because it's that we all have to multitask now. You don't have a choice. You have to think we're in a pandemic, but you also have to think about something else that's heading our way or could possibly head our way.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, COVID-19 really brings into the picture a lot of additional complications that we're going to have to think through this hurricane season. So I've got some points that I'll go over with the group here, the community. It's just added barriers, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. And whenever you're ready, I'm ready. You sound good. You look good. And that's a great jumping off point. We're in the midst of a pandemic with COVID-19, and you say it's adding some extra barriers. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so there's a lot of additional things that we're going to have to really think and plan through, and that's everybody in the entire community. One of the things that's of concern is sheltering. When you think of shelters for hurricanes and you've seen pictures or videos before, you'll probably see a lot of mass gatherings of people for extended periods of time. Well, we can't really do that now with COVID-19. So, local, state, and federal partners are really looking at the sheltering models to say, hey, what can and should we do in our shelters to minimize the impact of COVID-19 on a shelter as well. Some of the other things that we've got to think about, really, the community's been having a lot of focused efforts on COVID-19, rightfully so. But unfortunately, if you drive around the community, you're going to notice a lot of blue tarps yet on roofs. So what that tells you is there's a lot of people that haven't taken the steps to go ahead and rebuild or fix a lot of issues from previous storms or hurricanes. Well, now's the time to go ahead and fix that before we get into the afternoon thunderstorms, which could present 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, or hurricanes.
Yeah.
Now's the time to not forget, but kind of shift gears and think towards the next big hazard or threat and say, hey, I got to do some home repairs.
Sure.
A lot of people are hurting financially right now. So when you think of that, you think of hurricanes, well, they may not be able to be ready. And when what am I talking about? Well, in order to be ready, you have to get a lot of supplies. You need a lot of purchases. Again, you got to go ahead and prep your home. You got to fix things at your home. But also one of the recommendations is to have additional monetary savings with you so that you're able to pay for response and recovery efforts.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a job, you don't have income, how are we going to go ahead and do that? So there's going to be extra steps for communities to help one another through recovery of a hurricane.
Yeah.
Also, with that financial comes insurance. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that are niceties to a lot of people. When you're low on financial or monetary funds, you often think, hey, can I just not pay this insurance? Or, hey, I don't need this anymore. But with that comes a lot of additional risk or hazards or threats to your own financial well-being, right? So if you have damage at your home or even your business, how are you going to go ahead and pay for that if you don't have the necessary insurance?
Yeah.
As myself, my family, and I'm sure everybody else are experiencing all the supply shortages. Well, with hurricanes, you need a lot of supplies. So the recommendation there is to start building your plan now. Start building your kit now. Don't wait until a hurricane is knocking at the door, so to speak. Start the efforts now to get the supplies that you need. Don't wait.
Yeah, can I ask you a little bit to elaborate on that? Because this year, I believe, you talk about people going to shelters, and they normally would stack you on top of one another. You can't do that. You have to practice social distancing. But I would think that this year in your hurricane supply kit, you would need additional items because that's just the world we live in now.
Absolutely. So you can't just think about having at least 72 hours of food and water, medications, flashlights, batteries, and all that other stuff. You also have to think about your health. Okay, so you're going to have to think through masks and whether you have additional masks, wipes, or sanitary wipes. You've got to think through gloves in certain situations, protective clothing in some regard. And again, a lot of that is really challenging or difficult to get right now. So, start now and don't wait until the hurricane's here because you definitely won't be able to get it then. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't believe that these supply shortages are going to go anytime soon. I think they're going to last through at least the summer at some point. So
Even with things opening back up again, and it seems like maybe the supply chain is normalizing a little bit, and people aren't maybe hoarding as much as they were initially, because we're right now, as I'm speaking to you, we're in phase one, possibly getting ready to go into phase two.
yeah, even with that, so there's still a huge demand for resources, equipment, supplies, and PPE or personal protective equipment. And fortunately, we don't see that going away anytime soon. Even if the items do begin to hit the market or go back on the market, some people will still do hoarding. They'll still end up buying supplies for their families and their friends. They know they can't get it, and that will put a strain on the system for quite some time.
Yeah.
And really, you also have to plan ahead. And what I mean by that is not only thinking about how you're going to get out of harm's way, but also um, again, thinking about your health along the way. So, any additional places that you go into, especially out of your area, you're putting yourself at risk. So, with that, you have to remember some of the locations you may evacuate to may still be in a lockdown or there still may be curfews. So, you really have to plan ahead and look to those areas you're going to see if you're going to have any barriers to allowing you to get there.
Sure.
Some places still have law enforcement in place and you can't even get there. So
Yeah.
you have to do a little more diligence and look ahead.
Can you maybe elaborate or tell us a little bit about maybe will they need special paperwork? Because I know as journalists, as we travel up and down the roads, we have a special letter and ID. So in case we're stopped in our personal vehicles going to and from work or going to a story, we can show them this letter and then they see our ID and explain this is why we're actually out on the street doing what we're doing.
Yeah, those are great for local responses, but every jurisdiction or every county, city, state has their own protocols and requirements. So that just kind of goes back to reinforcing the message of going ahead, planning ahead,
Hmm.
looking in the internet of where you're going to and seeing if they have any of those barriers. If they are requiring certain documentation, at least you'll have it ahead of time and you won't get stopped and not be able to get there.
Sure. And a lot of people, and I know I'm one of them, my in-laws are both in assisted living facilities. What is it that I should know or should be able to do for them?
Well, it really depends on where we're at in response to COVID-19. They may still be in the status of not allowing others into their
Yeah,
facilities. So if that's the case, you really end up having to trust the management and the administration of that facility to do the right thing for your loved one. And you always have the right to call them and ask for their administration and basically, I hate to say it this way, but put some pressure on them if you don't feel comfortable with their actions. If there's a tropical storm or hurricane coming directly at that facility and you don't feel safe with them being there, then you can really impress upon them how you feel and that your loved one really needs to be moved somewhere else.
yeah. And is there any way, now that you're saying prep and get things in advance, should we have something ready for them as well? Even though the facility should have it, but we've seen, a failure on the parts of some systems in the past. So what can we do for seniors who might be in one of these places, but you want to get them supplies personally? What should we be doing?
You kind of really hit the nail on the head, and that exact question you just asked should be asked of the administrator or the leadership of that organization. So that long-term facility, get their phone number and don't just talk to the main front desk employee. And unfortunately, they don't have all the answers.
Hmm.
For these types of things, you really have to talk to somebody in leadership or even the administrator of that facility and really impress upon them the need for them to step up their preparedness efforts. And that's the time to ask them, hey, can I bring them extra tissues? Can I bring them uh, moisturizing cloths or sanitary cloths or medications, and that will really impress upon them that they need to do something to step up their effort.
Yeah.
So
And
those are great questions, and don't
yeah.
be afraid to ask them because they have to answer them for you.
Sure, be their advocate for sure. The other thing, I know you went over this before, but normally we've been taught in the past to have like 72 hours worth of equipment, enough for 3 days to in case something does happen. And we are in a situation where over the past, I believe it is 5 hurricane seasons where we have seen tropical activity. We're in it now, tropical activity before June 1st. You know, tropical storms don't care about a calendar. It happens when it happens. So should we be in a situation now while we're in a pandemic where we plan for more days than we typically would plan for because these are unusual times?
Yeah, I would highly recommend and encourage that activity amongst everybody in our community. If you're listening today, please take this serious. Even if you look at the National Hurricane Center's website right now, you're going to see they're tracking a tropical system out there that's going to go towards the Bahamas this weekend. While it's not supposed to have significant impacts on us, it really shows us that hurricane season is here and that we've got to take it serious. And with my comments before about supplies being in short supply or in demand, people are picky, so to speak, and they really like certain things. And you may not be able to get it now, or you may especially not be able to get it right before a hurricane or a tropical storm. So if you're able to start stockpiling the things you really like, especially non-perishable foods,
Mhm.
bottles or gallons of water, those types of things, there's no harm in that. Yes, they do have expiration dates, but they last for quite a long time. So now's the time to start building them. Don't wait because of the supply issues that we're in right now. Don't expect to go to the grocery store or Lowe's or somewhere else and just be able to pick it off the shelf. We aren't able to do that right now anyways because of COVID-19. So that just goes to show you're going to have to take extra time and diligence to build up to your supplies. You're not going to be able to get them all right now.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people who are all feeling this added pressure, anxiety, if you will? Do you have any advice for those as we get ready to, to experience or go into this hurricane season?
Yeah, now's the best time to get your kit and your plan together. So what I mean by that is, if you live with others, whether it be your significant other, your family, your friends, just get them together and just sit down and talk to them. Okay, and in doing that, you're going to be building a plan. What is it we're going to do if we experience a tropical storm or a hurricane soon or later in this season? And then from there, you just start writing things down, and then you're going to have a game plan. And then from that, just operationalize it, meaning just put it into action. Okay, so whatever you've talked about or you wrote down, make sure you actually do it. People need plans, they need education, they need training. And if you don't have that, then you feel weakness, you feel fear, and you feel susceptible to rumors and chaos and stress. So now's the time to come together, help each other, build your plans, and get educated. There's a lot of great resources out there for you to get educated, including the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA. Ready.gov is an awesome website that helps educate on kids and the hazards that are out there and what you should do about them. So again, now's the time to get educated, get smart, and get prepared. And that way you're going to feel more comfortable and ready to handle this next storm.
Sure. I know we always say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it seems like that's what you're saying right now.
Yeah, it's not just a statement, it's not just rhetoric. We really mean what we're saying. Okay, if you take the diligence now, it's going to help you in the future.
Yeah. Anything else you would like to cover or go over that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure that the people who are watching right now, especially those who are most vulnerable, need to know?
Yeah, if you're a special needs individual, or you have any kind of ailments or disabilities or mobility issues, please go ahead and register with the Florida Special Needs Registry. That way, local communities know that you're at risk and they can reach out to you before a storm or a hurricane and make sure you're okay. And that way, they can follow up with you. With that, just remember that hospitals are not shelters. So you don't think that during a major storm or hurricane, you can just get in your vehicle and go to a hospital and that we're just open 24/7 or ready to care for you. Do your diligence, know where you're going to go. If it's a shelter, just make sure you follow social distancing with COVID-19 and take your extra precautionary measures with your personal protective equipment. Make sure that you've got your required medications and you've got your legal documents, any kind of insurance and identification. Make sure those are in a waterproof, sealable bag because you don't want to be hunting for those whenever it's time to leave. So make sure you've got that ready. And the last thing, just remember that after a major tropical system, there's going to be a lot of damage and a lot of injuries that occur. So take diligence and know that you've got to be very vigilant to your surroundings when we're talking these, you know, tornadoes and hurricanes and tropical
Yeah.
storms and all that, even the bad afternoon thunderstorms. A lot of people don't know that 6 inches of water, especially if it's moving and it's swiftly moving, can actually knock your feet out from under you, so you can fall from that.
Hmm.
It can make it really hazardous when you drive, so you can't get traction. And 1 foot of water can actually make your vehicle float, make most vehicles float. So people don't they don't think about those things, but we have to, because our lives are at risk, and we've got to be extra vigilant and not put ourselves in harm's way.
Yeah, and we're in Florida. We're surrounded by water.
We're surrounded by water. It's all around us, whether it's the coastline or even the lakes, the
Lakes. Yeah,
major lakes that we have, and the
absolutely.
rivers. There's rivers here too.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, be extra vigilant, try to avoid injuries, and if it doesn't seem right or feel right, it's not right.
Yeah.
So it's best not to do it.
Good old gut. Just trust
Good
it.
old God. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God, you've been extremely helpful. Thank you so very much. I know this information, we say it to people every year, but each year we have so many people who move to Florida and they're new, so they don't understand what it takes to go through a hurricane season here. So this information will definitely be useful to a lot of people, and especially those new people who we welcome into our state.